When does a React component re-render? Let's take a look at this example here. When I click this button, it will increment by 1. A React re-render is basically a function component of the function definition. Here, to render a counter, I basically call counter with an initial count of 0. There are two ways for a component to re-render. First, do its props change. And I don't mean like the values of the initial count or some other props if they're available. I literally mean the object of the props. Here, when app re-renders, both counter and slow component will render. This is because a new object is being recreated every time. Remember what I said when renders are conceptually function calls of the function definition? This is the same idea here. To fix this type of problem, what you want to do is apply React.memo. So if you don't want counter to re-render when app re-renders, then wrap it with React.memo. In this case, it will do a shallow comparison of the props. The second way is an inline use memo. I don't necessarily recommend this because it can break some stuff, but if it works and it makes sense for a use case, try it out. The third one is you can try out the new React compiler. Basically, it will try to automatically apply these memos around your codebase and figure out these problems for you. The second way React components render is via state change. For example, the set count will increment the count by 1, causing an update to the state and a re-render to only the counter and its subtree. This might be problematic because it can get really complicated really fast. Using a useState inline to the component may be fine, but let's say you have many custom hooks. Here, useNow has a useState which sets set now and use current minute depends on use current hour. It can cause many state updates that you just can't mentally understand. And so there's a couple ways to fix this. First, reduce the complexity of the component. You can also move state down the tree, which means if a specific component depends on a state, but for some reason it's in the parent, just move the state down to the child. If a piece of JSX within a component doesn't depend on the actual state, then move that JSX up so that JSX doesn't re-render when the child re-renders. And third, don't use state if you don't need to. If the data doesn't need to be reactive, the UI doesn't need to react to it, then just use a useRef. There's a third way that React components can re-render, and it's via use context. I highly recommend you check out the video I posted yesterday talking more about that and how to solve problems related to that. Hope you learned something. Remember, there's 3 ways the React component can render: props, state, or use context. Happy hacking.